this video we're going to be going over how to do puzzles and how to get better at them. So let's just get right into it. There are three kinds of puzzles. One of them is going to be on how to do a checkmate. One of them is actually how to win material, like tactics. And the other one is going to be on defending. Sometimes the opponent is doing an attack and we have to defend against it. So in this example, we're actually going to be doing a checkmate. So look at our knight. The knight is preventing the king from getting out, and there's also a pawn here. So what we can do is we can try to bring the queen all the way to the top. Now this is actually the same exact pattern. Right now the opponent captured that pawn, and as black we only have a rook. So we're either going to try to do a checkmate or we're trying to win material. And if you look at the black queen and the white rook and the white queen, we actually cannot really attack them right away successfully. Like if you try to go over here, the queen can just capture you. If you try to attack the rook, they can also just capture you too. But if we look at this position, this is going to be a typical back rank checkmate. So we can bring this rook, they have to block, and then we can capture. Now again, this is going to be following the same pattern. The opponent's king is stuck in the back. They can try to block with their rook, but we can just capture that. Alright, now in this position, it is the same exact thing. We are following the back rank checkmate pattern. If anybody wants to identify these patterns, you actually need to do a lot of puzzle questions. For example, you can look at Polgar's book, Laszlo Polgar's, who raised 3 women grandmasters. There's also Murray Chandler's book on how to beat your dad, chess tactics for kids. Those are also going to be very good for identifying patterns. Now we have a battery attack with the rooks right now, and we want to use these rooks to make an attack to the king. So we can just bring it up one square like that. Okay, so this is going to be again following the same battery attack pattern. If you look at the whole board, the opponent is trying to attack the knight, but that doesn't really do much, right? But if we look at the queen and the bishop, we want to attack on h2, and only the king is protecting the square. That's why we can successfully bring our queen. Again, this is going to be a twofold attack this time. Our knight and our queen, they're attacking on f2. Even though the opponent captured our piece like this, normally we would just capture that back. But since there is a better move of doing a checkmate, we want to do this. Alright, now the opponent actually wants to do an attack over here. It is white's turn, so let's think for a second. In this one we can actually do a little tactic. And we should always look at what the opponent played last, because that usually gives us a hint. Right now the rook and the king, they're on the same diagonal. So what we can do is we can try to bring our bishop to c4. Now as you can see, we are actually switching from checkmates to material win in this position. And if you want to try to do like a checkmate to the king, you can look at the escape square for the king. You can look at there's a knight trying to block that. That's why it's not going to be very easy to do a checkmate right now, and instead a tactic will be the better option. This is a good question. Now in this position, we are trying to capture 2 pieces, right? We can capture the opponent's queen, we can capture the opponent's rook, and now we have to make a decision on what to capture. If we capture the opponent's rook, they can capture our rook, which is going to be a trade. But if we capture the opponent's rook and then they capture our queen, we can capture that back and we will still have an extra rook. So this is how we can win material in this position. Alright, again the opponent captured our knight. Normally we just capture that back. However, we have a battery attack right now, and this is going to be a very important pattern to focus on. And as we can see, we are attacking on h7, so this is going to be perfect. Okay, so this is now an endgame pattern, but again the king just moved over here, so we should always look at how the opponent's position, how their last move changes what we can do. And we can see that they are on the same diagonal. So if we bring something on here, we can try to win their rook. Now again, in this position we have a twofold attack pattern. We can try to capture that square with our queen. Now of course sometimes it is a little bit difficult to see these patterns. First, you should be focusing on what the opponent wants to attack. They're right now attacking our rook, and we want to move this rook to save it. Now if you move the rook away, they can capture your bishop, so we don't want that to happen. Maybe you want to bring your knight to be able to protect the rook. However, since this is a tactic and we are actually not in a materially favorable position compared to the opponent's pieces, it's probably going to be a win for black. We're either going to be winning material or we're going to be winning the game. And now queen c7 is the answer for that one. Alright, so in this one it is white's turn. Now the white rook is attacking our queen. There's a black rook, the black rook is attacking our queen. There's a black rook attacking our knight. So we are actually in a bit of a trouble. In these kind of positions, what you want to do is a tempo move. We want to move our pieces with tempo. So look at the bishop and the queen. They're both attacking the knight on e7. And this is what we call, again, a twofold attack kind of pattern. So if we capture this with the queen, this is going to end up in a checkmate. Ooh, this is actually a very nice pattern. Chess.com really likes to ask this in Puzzle Rush. We are going to be doing a backrank checkmate right now. We want to bring the queen all the way up as we have a battery attack. However, the opponent's rook can capture us, and after we capture back with our rook, the king can capture back. That's why in this position we're going to be doing this move first to push the opponent's king to the side, and then since we remove the defender from f8, we can bring our queen successfully, and then we can do that backrank checkmate. Now in this position we again have a battery attack theme, and we're attacking on g7. The opponent is not really attacking anything, they're only protecting the square with the king, so capturing this is going to be a very good idea. Now if the opponent captured our piece, we lost it, we can't capture it back because the opponent's queen protects it. But the opponent's king is very open right now, so this is going to be a very nice idea to try to attack this king. Maybe you're thinking of moving the bishop here, but they can block it, so that doesn't work. But we have this pawn. The pawn is preventing the king from getting out to the 6th rank, and it can also help us protect this queen when it goes to e6. So that's going to be very, very good. Ooh. So right away in this position we see that our rook is on the same file as the opponent's queen. So we can try to move the bishop to do a discovered attack. But if we move the bishop, we need to do a check, and the king is not on a dark square, so this doesn't work, right? If you move, for example, the rook to capture that pawn, if you move the bishop to capture that pawn, the opponent can try to maybe capture that, but our queen is protecting it, so that wouldn't work. But there's not really anything the bishop can capture that is going to be good or attack. So what we are going to be doing in this position is we're trying to find another kind of plan. And our bishop and our queen, they're attacking on c3. This is going to be a very nice twofold attack again to do a checkmate. So as you can see, it takes a long time to analyze the position to see whether you are going to be trying to win material or whether you're trying to do a checkmate. And it takes, just like anything, practice to be able to find these moves. There's no like secret sauce that you can use to get better instantly at these puzzles, but it requires some time. Alright, in this position the opponent just brought the rook to here. It can go down, but it's not really doing much. But we actually have an open file, and our queen, our bishop, they're attacking the opponent's kingside structure. They're not attacking the king directly, but maybe we can try to change that. For example, I'm thinking right away of bishop d4, But after bishop d4, they can try to move the king to h2. So after king goes to h2, maybe we can try to do a check with our rook, and then that is going to be a very, very good idea. Maybe the opponent's king will try to go to g3, and if the king goes to g3, we can try to oops, not from there, the queen is there. We can try to do a check maybe from f4. So I think this is going to, okay. So the opponent didn't want to go through that king moves. They just sacrificed their queen for that, and that's going to be good. Alright, now in this position, the opponent's king is again very open, but as you can see, we only have a knight and a queen. The opponent has a queen, bishop, and a rook. So they actually have an extra rook. So in these kind of positions, we either will be doing a checkmate, or we will be winning the opponent's material. Alright, we can actually win the opponent's queen in a few ways. So we can actually go over here to prepare a discovered attack, and once the king goes, we can use our knight to do a check. So this is the only square the king can go because the knight was attacking these squares, and now we gotta move the knight to be able to attack the queen, and the only way to do that is successfully is going to be e1. And then after the king goes, we can capture the opponent's queen. Alright, now the opponent captured our, our knight. And now let's look at the material. Right now we have 2 rooks, that is going to be good. The opponent has 1 rook, so we have an extra rook. The bishops, they cancel each other, so... Oh wait, the opponent has a rook over there. Don't mind me. So the rooks are actually equal. That's not going to be the answer. For example, if you want, you can try to do a removing the defender to be able to capture this rook. However, it doesn't work because the opponent's knight is going to be capturing us. So that means there is no tactic in this position because we cannot significantly win a lot of pieces in a few moves like that. Then we can look into some checkmate ideas. Now our bishop is preventing the king from going to c7, and this was one of the first questions we analyzed. In those positions it was actually a pawn, and the opponent's piece was again blocking it. So what we can do is we can do a back rank checkmate. We can bring the queen there. Alright, this is actually a nice position as well. The opponent's king is a little bit open right now. Our rook was checking it, so they went over there, and we have another rook that we can try to attack. If we look at the pawns, it is actually equal. So this position is exactly equal. We can try to win material, or we can try to win the game. Of course, winning the game is going to be better, so let's try to do that. Let's do this check, and now we have to continue with tempo to attack the king more. So we're probably going to bring that rook. Excellent, and now we are going to try to check the king again. Now we can't bring the rooks because of that pawn. They can capture us. So what we want to do is we want to use something else. Our king is too far away, but our pawn is going to be very close. So we can push that pawn. After they capture, we can capture back. Alright, now the opponent captured our pawn. The opponent's bishop actually defends that knight. So we want to capture that, but that's just going to be a trade. And in these kind of positions, we don't want to just do a trade. However, look at this bishop, guys. This bishop is also protecting this knight. So this is what we call an overloaded piece. They are doing 2 things. Once we capture it and they capture us back, the opponent's knight on h6 will be hanging. So we can definitely try to capture that. Alright, in this position the opponent brings the knight to here. Right away we can consider capturing that knight, but the opponent's pawn is protecting it. So that's not going to really work. But we actually have a battery attack facing over here. The opponent's rook is going to be protecting that, right? So that might not be too easy to find. But alright, let's look into the first thing that I said. I said that if we just do this trade, this is not going to work. That is true. By doing this trade, we are not going to be winning anything for an advantage. But what we are going to be doing is, we are going to be moving the bishop away. These are what we call clearance sacrifices. We want to clear the way so that our queen can go to d5 and attack these two pieces to do a fork next. So even though sometimes like you look at the most obvious things and it doesn't pay off, move on to the next thing. And if it doesn't pay off, then you can try to come up with some more complex ideas. And yeah, this is going to be the idea. We can capture that bishop. Alright, in this position now, we can definitely try to do a checkmate. Now, this is actually similar to something that Morphy would do. We want to bring the rook to h1, but nothing is protecting it. Fortunately, we have this bishop, so we can try to bring the bishop to f3 to be able to do this. And this is actually very similar to what Morphy did against Duke Karl in the famous opera game. So what we can do is we can bring the bishop to f3. They are going to sacrifice the rook, but they can't really prevent this checkmate. Now they want to capture this bishop, but again, we can finish the game first. Alright, now the opponent pushes the pawn. Again, it is going to be black's turn. And right now, white does have a material advantage. Unfortunately, we can't really bring the queen to make an attack right away. So what we can try to do is, we can try to win the opponent's piece. We can try to win material. And this is going to be a very fortunate position because instead of doing that move, maybe white could have pushed the rook to d8 to do a discard attack to be able to win our queen. But after pawn goes to b3, they actually missed that opportunity. The opponent's rook is pinned, and if we bring our bishop, we're going to be doing pp on the pp, putting pressure on the pinned piece. So this is going to be wonderful, and then we can capture that. If they try to promote, of course, normally you want to use the bishop right away, but this is a light square, so we can just use the king. Okay, so in this position we want to do this checkmate, but the knight is the issue. The material-wise, we are actually going to be the same as the opponent's pieces, but the opponent does have a little bit more pawns. So in this position, since they just moved the knight, right away we can think of removing the defender idea. If this knight goes away, we can try to do this checkmate. However, the knight is also attacking our bishop, so if you thought of like moving the pawn to g5 right away, that wouldn't work out that well. Okay, so material, trying to win material could work. However, as we thought of, trying to attack this knight isn't going to pay off that well. Instead of doing that, maybe we can try to do a checkmate. You see, guys, we're attacking this square again with a twofold attack, and the opponent's queen is protecting, the king is also protecting. So if we capture this, they have to capture with the queen. But now, we're not going to do the obvious move and capture the queen. Instead, we're going to be doing a check. They could have also gone to f1, but after they go to d1, we can capture it, and that will make a checkmate. Alright, right away, after the opponent captures a pawn, you see that this d file is opened up. So we can definitely try to attack over this d file. And it is important to see that our queen is cutting through this diagonal. The opponent's king cannot escape. So if we do rook d1, the king will have to get out. Very good. And now, our queen can try to do this attack. Since the rook is still controlling the d file, the king will have to go to somewhere like b8. So after the king goes to somewhere like b8, you want to bring more pieces to attack, and our bishop is going to be doing this job, and that is going to be the answer for that one. Oh, okay, this is a classic checkmate idea. Remember when I said you can look at again on How to Beat Your Dad in Chess by Grandmaster Chun-Li Murray? This is actually like one of those questions in his book. What you want to do is, the bishop is preventing the king from escaping, so we want to do a sacrifice to open this file, make it into a semi-open file, and then we can try to bring the queen on h3 to be able to make this attack. So after the opponent captures it, we can do this. There's no way to prevent this checkmate except for stalling, and then that is going to end up in a checkmate. Alright, now we are trying to attack the opponent's king. They blocked it with the knight. The opponent also wants to attack our rook. They want to do a checkmate very soon. In these kind of positions, what you want to do is you want to play with tempo. We gotta act fast. The only way to gain time and tempo is to either do checks or attack major pieces like the queen, the rook, or like things like that. But since they want to do a checkmate, we actually have to start with checks. So right away I'm thinking of moving the knight to f6. If the knight goes to f6, we're going to be attacking the opponent's king. If they captures with the pawn, the opponent's knight will be hanging. They will have to bring the king over there, right? And then our rook can go all the way to the top to do a very nice attack. They can still block it with the bishop, but since our queen was over here and our rook is over here, the bishop will be hanging. We can capture that with our rook. So guys, let's go over this idea. Let's do this. Rook goes to d8. Okay, they didn't move the last thing. Alright, so far we haven't had any defending positions. Sometimes chess.com likes to ask, like, if they do a check to your king, how do you get out of that position without losing? Pretty much nothing, right? Or pretty much like the least worst option. Now in this position, the opponent's king went to here. We did a check before. Right away we see that the opponent's bishop on f4 is hanging, and we can try to capture that. And now that can actually end up in a checkmate as well. So this equalizes the position. We now both have a rook individually, but they actually have two more pawns. So the plan isn't over yet. We need to capture more pieces. Now, remember when I told about, so my hand got tired. I usually hold this microphone because my computer's fans, they make a lot of noise. If I put it on the desk, the microphone actually picks it up. So this is going to be the reason why. You'll see me in all the videos I keep holding my microphone. Alright, so in this position what we want to do is we want to do a battery attack by going over here, and then just like in the previous questions we can try to do a back rank checkmate if the king goes to the corner. If the king goes over to f1, we can try to do a check with our rook, and they will have to block with the queen. After we capture the queen, that is going to be a checkmate. And as you can see, the opponent is also attacking our rook right now. So we need to do something with tempo. So let's do that move. Again, this is going to be the same back rank checkmate pattern. Alright, now again, this is going to be an endgame position. We're playing as white. Let me think for a moment what we can try to do. Alright, now look at the king. The king is going to be in this corner, right? Our queen is cutting through this diagonal. The king cannot escape. The king cannot go down here because of this pawn. So if you want, you can try to do a check from c2, but the problem with c2 check is the king can go to b5. So that doesn't work. And because the opponent has an extra rook, we'll either trying to capture this rook or the queen, or we'll try to do a checkmate. Since we only have a queen that can really attack these pieces, we can't really try to win material. At the same time, the opponent wants to bring the queen to h6 to be able to do this attack, to do a checkmate eventually. So we don't want to do anything that is not going to be in tempo. So queen can go to a6, and that's going to be making the checkmate. Alright, so right now we're playing as white. Right away we see that the pawn can capture that bishop. Ooh, this is actually a fancy checkmate. However, if we capture the opponent's bishop, that will be just equalizing the game. The opponent will still have two minor pieces. We'll still have two minor pieces, two rooks. So the major pieces also will be equal, and that is not going to be giving us an advantage. When you are playing your game, sometimes equalizing the game is going to be the way to go. That is the only option. But in these kind of positions, generally you want to win either the game, win material, or save your pieces, like save your king. So we have this battery attack again. This has come up a lot of times, and as you can see, this is going to be something important to realize in your own tactics. And the queen, the bishop, they're both facing on g8. After we want to go to g8, the opponent's rook actually wants to capture us. Since the bishop will be protecting, the king cannot capture. But once we do that, the opponent's king is smothered, and we can actually do a very fancy smothered checkmate, which will also be a fork. Alright, excellent. So the opponent's king is again in the back rank. We can try to attack that king right away with our rook. That is the first thing that I see. But then, the opponent can try to go to g7. Then we gotta keep attacking the opponent's king. Maybe we can bring the rook to g8. The king will try to escape to h6, and then boom. That pawn is something we can capture. The bishop is going to be helping us to protect it. Okay. Now the opponent also wants to capture the knight, so we need to do something quickly. If we just move the knight away somewhere like f3 to make it safer, the opponent can actually capture our bishop. So we don't want to lose material. We're already a minor piece behind. So winning the game is going to be the way to go. Alright, so this is going to be Alright, so white pushed the pawn to there, but our knight is over here attacking this pawn. It also prevents the king from leaving from f2. So right away I'm thinking of bringing the queen to h4 to attack this pawn. After that move, maybe the opponent will try to push the pawn to h3. Now if the pawn goes to h3, this is actually going to be a very neat tactic. The queen can go to g3 and attack this pawn. The bishop is going to be attacking it, and we also want to attack h2. So if they decide to capture our knight on g4, that's not going to matter that much. We can just capture on g2 with our queen. Alright, so they are doing a queen sacrifice. There's nothing to be afraid of. This is a free queen, and then they can't prevent the checkmate. Alright, now the opponent is bringing the knight over here, but right away I see that the bishop is on the same diagonal as the opponent's queen. So this means that maybe we can try to do an attack with the knight. If we bring the knight to d4, excuse me, we want to attack on c2, and look, since the knight is going to be going over here attacking these two squares, the opponent's queen cannot move and still successfully protected over this diagonal, so they would have to go somewhere like c4. If the queen goes to c4, you can bring your rook to even put more pressure on that square, on that file, and we can try to win over here. So usually people don't do this. Chess.com's algorithms, they usually give like queens like this, but usually they would just move the queen away and then we can do that fork. Alright, now this is going to be an endgame position, and that the opponent actually wants to promote very quickly right away. Usually you can try to bring the rook to d4 after you trade. We can try to attack these pawns, but again the opponent's pawn wants to get promoted. So we can't really prevent this promotion. I mean, you can try to bring your rook down, but when you have two pass pawns on the 6th rank versus a rook, plus a rook in the back, there's no way we can stop them successfully. That's why we can try to do a simple rook-king checkmate. The opponent's king is in the corner, so we want to bring the rook to h4 right away. The opponent's king can try to go to g6, right? That is going to be the escape square. So we want to prevent the opponent from escaping, and in order to do that, we're going to be bringing the king to f6. This is actually a very important idea. Not all the time you have to move your pieces with tempo. Okay, now they are going to be sacrificing their rook, so we actually have to capture this, and then they can push this pawn. Now we have to be careful. If you bring your rook to prevent the pawn from promoting, they can actually push the c pawn, and now they have two pawns that wants to promote. And if that pawn goes to c7, we cannot successfully capture it because the pawn can promote on c8. So this is when we actually need to use our king to be able to gobble up those pieces. Alright, so I'm going to finish it over here. We already did 36 questions. But generally, in these kind of positions, it is just going to be pattern recognition. And in order to learn those patterns, you can watch our videos. I'm going to be making more videos on typical checkmate tactics in the future. And you can also check out those books that I mentioned. Chanley Murray's, he actually has series for kids, but even adults can do those books because um, they're not that, they're not like meant for like really like kids who are like 6 years old. They're meant for like growing kids who are actually like interested in chess. So those themes, those motifs are going to be important to study. And in Laszlo Polgar's book, you can actually do a lot of checkmate questions that involve these kind of patterns. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. It does mean a lot to us. See you in the next one. Bye.